Denis felt his heart stop. 1 second he was standing inside a bright supermarket in Lekki, Lagos, checking his phone and thinking about nothing important at all. The next second, the whole world tilted, because a woman in a yellow and brown Ankara gown was standing 3 shelves away from him, comparing 2 cartons of milk like it was the most normal thing in the world. His fingers went cold, the basket in his hand nearly slipped. He stared so hard that his eyes began to hurt. No, it could not be, but it was. Morayo, his wife, the woman who had disappeared 2 years ago without a trace, the woman he had searched for until his voice broke, the woman whose picture was still saved as his phone wallpaper, even though everyone had begged him to move on. She was right there, alive, breathing, choosing groceries. For a moment, Denis could not move. The supermarket noise faded into something far away. The hum of the freezer, the beeping at the cashier's stand, the chatter of a child asking for biscuits, the rolling sound of trolley wheels on polished floor tiles. Everything became blurry except her face, her shoulders, the way she tilted her head when she read labels. Even that small habit. She still had it. Denis opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then suddenly he dropped the basket and began walking fast. Not even walking, almost stumbling. People turned to look at him as he rushed past them, his breathing rough, his hands shaking. "Morayo," he said, but it came out like a whisper. She did not hear him. He got closer. His chest tightened so badly it hurt. "Morayo." This time his voice cracked. The woman turned. And Denis felt a sharp pain cut through him. Because it was truly her. Same oval face, same dark eyes, same tiny mark near her left eyebrow from the day she slipped in the kitchen during their first year of marriage and laughed even while crying. His lips trembled. "Morayo." He reached her before his mind could catch up. He grabbed her hand, not hard, just enough to stop her from turning away. And in one flashing second, everything shattered. Slap. The sound cut through the aisle. A few heads turned. Morayo yanked her hand back and stared at him like he was a stranger who had lost his mind. Her eyes were sharp, angry, alarmed. "Why are you holding my hand?" she snapped. "Who are you?" Denis froze. The sting on his cheek burned, but that was not what hurt. What hurt was her face. No recognition, no shock, no tears. Nothing, just confusion and irritation. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Morayo, it's me." She frowned. He took 1 step closer, already trembling. "It's me, Denis. Your husband." The way she looked at him then made the floor feel unsteady beneath his feet. She stepped back. "My husband," she repeated, almost offended. "What are you talking about?" A small crowd had started forming now, not too close but close enough. In Lagos, people always noticed drama, even when they pretended not to. Denis wiped a hand over his face. His breathing was ragged now. "No, no, no. Morayo, look at me properly." His voice broke. "Please, please look at me." She looked, still nothing. And that frightened him more than if she had screamed, because this was not pretending. This was not anger. This was a real blank wall. Denis's fingers fumbled into his pocket. He nearly dropped his phone trying to unlock it. His hands were so wet with sweat he could barely press the screen. "See," he said quickly. "See this." He opened his gallery. Wedding photos. Morayo in her white gown at their church wedding in Surulere. Him in a navy suit, smiling too widely because he had been too happy to act normal. Another picture, both of them at Elegushi Beach months later, their feet in the sand. Another, Christmas in Ibadan at Morayo's mother's house, her holding a tray of jollof rice and laughing because Denis had stained his shirt before visitors arrived. He pushed the phone toward her. She stared at the screen, then at him, then back at the phone. Her face changed. Not recognition, but something shaky. "What is this?" she whispered. Denis's eyes filled with tears so suddenly he had to look away. "That is our wedding. That is us. Morayo, I have been looking for you for 2 years. The supermarket seemed too bright, too loud, too normal for a moment like this." Morayo took the phone with unsteady fingers. She swiped to the next picture, then the next, and the next. Her lips parted. She looked almost dizzy. "These pictures," she said softly. "How?" Denis laughed once, but it was not real laughter. It was pain leaving his chest in a broken sound. "Because you're my wife." "No," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "No, no." Then she pressed her fingers to her temple like a headache had suddenly split her head open. Denis noticed she was breathing faster now. He reached out again, careful this time, not touching her yet. "Morayo, what happened to you? Where have you been?" "I searched everywhere. I went to the police. I put out missing posters. I checked hospitals. I even checked mortuaries." "Stop." Her voice shook. "Please, stop." And then a man's voice came from behind them. "Morayo, is everything okay?" Denis turned. A tall man in a wine-colored polo shirt and black trousers was hurrying toward them with a basket in his hand. The moment Denis saw his face, something in him tightened. He knew that face. Not well, but enough. Office meetings, project site discussions in Victoria Island, a shared contract years ago. Alibi. Denis's stomach dropped. Alibi slowed down when he reached them. His eyes moved from Morayo's face to Denis's face to the phone in her hand. And for one tiny second, just one, fear flashed across his face. Real fear. Quick, but clear. Denis saw it. Morayo turned to the man immediately, confused and distressed. "Alibi," she said. "Hold on first. I thought you were my husband. But who is this man?" The air changed. It became heavier. Denis looked straight at Alibi now. Really looked. The sweat gathering near his temple, the stiffness in his shoulders, the way his fingers tightened around the basket handle. Alibi forced a smile, but it looked sick. "Morayo," he said carefully, "let's go home first. This man is confused." Confused? Denis stepped forward. "No," he said, voice low and shaking with rage. "No. You know exactly who I am." Alibi's eyes darted around, toward the exit, toward the crowd, toward the security men near the main entrance. It happened fast after that. Too fast. Denis saw Alibi shift his weight back, like a man about to run. And in that instant, Denis knew one terrible thing with complete certainty. This was no mistake. This was no strange coincidence. This man knew exactly why Morayo did not remember him. He knew. And before Denis could say another word, Alibi turned sharply and bolted toward the exit. The basket crashed from his hand. A bottle rolled across the shiny floor. Someone screamed. One of the supermarket's security guards shouted, "Stop him!" Morayo gasped. Denis lunged forward, and the whole supermarket exploded into chaos. The bottle rolled across the shiny supermarket floor. Clack, 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 and suddenly everything moved at once. "Stop him!" one of the security guards shouted. Alibi ran, not a normal run, not the embarrassed jog of someone avoiding trouble. And this was the desperate sprint of a man who knew something terrible was about to catch up with him. He pushed past two customers near the fruit section. A woman screamed as apples spilled from her basket. Denis did not even think. He ran too. "Catch him!" Denis shouted, his voice cracking with anger and fear. Behind him, Morayo stood frozen, still holding the phone with their wedding pictures glowing on the screen. Her breathing was fast and uneven. The world around her felt unreal. Two husbands, two different lives. Her head hurt. The images on the phone, the wedding dress, the smiles, they looked real. But she did not remember them. Not one single moment. "Morayo!" She turned. A supermarket attendant had gently taken the phone from her shaking hands and placed it back into Denis's dropped basket. "Please sit down," the attendant said softly. "You look like you might faint." But Morayo could not sit. Because across the supermarket entrance, chaos was unfolding. Alibi was almost at the door, but two security guards had already moved. They stepped in front of him. "Sir, stop right there," one of them said. Alibi slowed down suddenly. Too suddenly. He raised his hands like someone who had just remembered he was innocent. "Why are you chasing me?" he said, breathing hard. "I didn't steal anything." Denis arrived seconds later, chest rising and falling heavily. "You know why you ran?" Denis shouted. The guard looked confused. "What is going on here?" Denis pointed directly at Alibi. "That man—" He stopped, because Alibi was smiling, Not a relaxed smile, a tight one. The kind people use when they are trying to control panic. "Officer," Alibi said calmly to the security guard, "this man is harassing my wife." Morayo slowly walked closer. Her heart was pounding now. She looked from one man to the other. Denis. Alibi. Her mind felt like two radios playing different stations at the same time. Denis stepped closer to her, but carefully this time. "Morayo," he said softly, "please, just listen to me." But before she could answer, Alibi grabbed her arm gently. "Let's go home," he said. Morayo pulled her arm back. "Wait." Her voice trembled. She pointed at Denis. "I want to understand something first." Alibi's smile faded. "What do you mean?" She held up the phone again. "These pictures—" Her voice shook. "This man says he is my husband." The crowd grew thicker. People in Lagos loved a story unfolding in public. Some shoppers had already stopped pushing their trolleys. A teenage boy quietly began recording on his phone. Denis ignored all of them. He looked only at Morayo. "2 years ago," Denis said slowly, "you disappeared." The words made the air feel colder. "You went to the market that morning. You never came home." Morayo's brows tightened. Denis continued, "I searched everywhere, police stations, hospitals, churches. I even traveled to Ibadan and Abeokuta looking for you." Morayo blinked. Something inside her chest stirred, something uncomfortable. But before she could speak, Alibi cut in quickly. "This man is lying." His voice was sharper now. "Morayo, you know me. I am your husband." She turned toward him slowly. "I know you are my husband," she said. But her tone had changed. It sounded uncertain now. A small crack had formed in the story she believed. Denis saw it, and hope rushed through him like electricity. He stepped forward. "Ask him one question," Denis said quietly. Morayo looked at him. "Ask him where you met." She turned to Alibi. "Yes. Where did we meet?" Alibi hesitated, just a moment, but Denis noticed. Everyone noticed. At a wedding," Alibi said. "Whose wedding?" Morayo asked. Another pause. A security guard looked at his colleague. Something about this situation was not right. I don't remember the name," Alibi said quickly. Denis let out a small laugh. Not joyful, a bitter one. "You see?" Morayo's chest tightened. She turned back to Denis. If you are my husband, tell me something about me." Denis swallowed. "Oh," then he said quietly, "you hate tomatoes in stew." Morayo blinked. Denis continued, "You always remove them before eating. You say the skin feels strange in your mouth." Her heart skipped, because that was true. But she had never told anyone that, except someone from her past. Denis's voice softened. "And when you laugh too hard, you cover your mouth with your left hand because you say your teeth look too big." Morayo slowly lifted her hand to her mouth, exactly the way he described. Her breathing became uneven. Memories did not come, but something deep inside her felt disturbed, like someone knocking on a locked door in her mind. Alibi suddenly stepped forward. "That is enough," he snapped. The calm man was gone now. His face looked different. Sweat had formed along his forehead. "This man is manipulating you," he told Morayo. Denis pointed directly at him. "No, you are the one manipulating her." The security guards exchanged looks. One of them spoke quietly into his walkie-talkie. "Call the police." Morayo looked between the two men again. Her voice was shaking now. "Someone tell me the truth." Denis took a step closer. His voice dropped. "Morayo, you disappeared the same week this man stopped coming to work." The sentence hit the air like a stone. Alibi froze. Denis continued slowly. "We worked on a project together in Victoria Island." Morayo turned sharply to Alibi. "You never told me that." Alibi's jaw tightened. "Because it doesn't matter." Denis leaned forward. "No, it matters a lot." And suddenly the supermarket doors opened. 2 police officers walked in. The crowd quickly parted. One officer looked around. "What is going on here?" The security guard pointed straight at Alibi. "This man tried to run." The officer turned to him. "Why were you running?" Alibi did not answer. Morayo's voice came out small but clear. I think something is wrong." She looked at Denis, then at the officers. "This man says he is my husband." She pointed at Denis. "And the man I thought was my husband." She slowly pointed at Alibi. "Just tried to run." The officers looked at each other. One stepped forward. "Sir," he said to Alibi, "you will need to come with us." Alibi's face went pale. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Then something strange happened. He slowly lifted his hands, not fighting, not arguing, just surrendering. The officer cuffed him. Morayo stared in confusion. Denis felt his heart hammer, because something deep inside him was screaming that the real truth had not even started yet. And what they were about to hear at the police station would be far worse than anything they had imagined. The police station in Lekki Phase 1 smelled faintly of paper, dust, and strong disinfectant. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. Morayo sat on a metal chair in the waiting area, both hands resting on her knees. Her fingers kept tightening and loosening. Tightening and loosening. Across from her, Denis paced slowly. Back and forth, back and forth. He had not stopped moving since they arrived. Every few seconds he looked toward the closed interrogation room door where Alibi had been taken. Behind that door, the man who had lived with Morayo for 2 years was now sitting under police questioning. Morayo watched Denis carefully. There was something painful in the way he moved, like someone trying to outrun his own thoughts. Finally she spoke. "Denis." He stopped pacing immediately. "Yes?" Her voice was small. "Did we really marry?" The question stabbed deeper than anything that had happened so far. Denis swallowed hard. "Yes," he said quietly. Morayo lowered her eyes. "I don't remember." Denis forced a small, gentle smile. "That's okay." But his voice trembled. "It will come back." Morayo rubbed her temples slowly. "My head feels strange," she said, "like there are things inside it. But they are locked away." Denis sat down across from her. 2 years is a long time, he said softly. "Your mind might just be protecting itself." Morayo nodded slowly. Then she whispered something that made Denis's chest tighten. "What if I never remember?" Denis looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Then we start again." Morayo looked up, surprised. Denis shrugged slightly. "If you forgot everything about me, I will just make you fall in love with me again." For the first time since the supermarket incident, Morayo's lips curved slightly. A weak smile, but it vanished quickly. Because the interrogation room door suddenly opened. A police officer stepped out. "Mr. Denis." Denis stood up immediately. "Yes, officer." The officer looked at both of them. "The suspect is ready to talk." Morayo felt her stomach twist. The officer added quietly, "You both need to hear this." Inside the interrogation room, the air felt heavy. A single ceiling fan turned slowly. Alibi sat at the table, his shoulders slumped. His confident appearance from the supermarket was gone. His eyes were red, not from tears, from exhaustion. A senior police officer, Inspector Adeyemi, stood beside the table with a file in his hand. He looked at Denis and Morayo as they entered. "Please sit." They did. Morayo could not stop staring at Alibi. This man had lived in the same house with her for 2 years. Shared meals, shared a bed, shared a life. Yet now he looked like a stranger. Inspector Adeyemi opened the file slowly. "Mr. Alibi has agreed to tell the truth." Morayo's fingers tightened on the table. Alibi did not look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the table surface. Inspector Adeyemi spoke calmly. "Mr. Denis, the suspect says he knew you before your wife disappeared." Denis nodded. "Yes, we worked on a project in Victoria Island." The inspector nodded. "That is correct." Then he turned to Alibi. "Tell them what you told us." The room became very quiet. Alibi exhaled slowly. Then he spoke. "I knew Denis before he married Morayo." Morayo's chest tightened. Alibi continued. "I met Morayo during a company dinner one evening. Denis brought her along." His voice sounded flat now, like a man who had already accepted his fate. "She was kind," he said. "Friendly, beautiful." Denis's jaw tightened. Alibi continued. "I admired her immediately." Morayo's eyes widened. "But she was already married," Alibi said. "So I stayed quiet." He paused. Then he whispered something that chilled the room. But I never stopped thinking about her. Morayo's breathing grew uneven. Inspector Adeyemi folded his arms. Continue. Alibi rubbed his face slowly. 2 years ago, I saw her again. Morayo looked confused. You saw me? Alibi nodded slowly. Yes. He finally lifted his eyes. But not to Denis. To Morayo. You were walking alone near Jakande Market. Morayo's mind went blank. That market. Yes, something about it felt familiar. Alibi continued quietly. You had gone to buy vegetables. Denis felt anger rise in his chest. What did you do? Alibi closed his eyes briefly, then he said the words that made Morayo's heart stop. I followed her. Silence fell. Morayo's hands began to shake. Inspector Adeyemi's voice was firm. And then? Alibi swallowed. I offered her a ride. Morayo whispered slowly, I got into your car. Alibi nodded. Yes. Denis clenched his fists. And then you kidnapped her, he said coldly. Alibi shook his head slowly. At first, I didn't plan to. The room grew colder. But while she sat in the car, talking, laughing, I realized something. Morayo stared at him. What? Alibi's voice became hollow. I realized I would never stop loving her. Denis slammed his hand on the table. You destroyed her life because of obsession. Alibi continued speaking like he had not heard him. I had already prepared something. Morayo felt dizzy. Inspector Adeyemi spoke. The suspect had a chemical substance in the vehicle. Denis froze. Morayo's voice trembled. What? Substance? Alibi finally said it. A sedative. Morayo felt the room spin. I sprayed it. Denis's stomach twisted. Morayo's eyes filled with tears. You made me unconscious. Alibi nodded slowly. Yes. Denis's voice shook with rage. What did you do after that? Alibi answered quietly. I took her to my house. Morayo's body went cold. The officer continued reading from the file. The suspect states that after she woke up, he forced her to drink another chemical mixture. Morayo whispered, Why? Alibi looked down again. It caused memory loss. Denis felt like the air had been punched out of his lungs. Morayo's voice cracked. You made me forget my life. Alibi nodded. Yes. The room became silent again. Inspector Adeyemi spoke slowly. When she woke up with no memory, he told her a lie. Morayo's heart pounded loudly. What lie? Alibi whispered the answer. I told her I was her husband. Morayo suddenly pushed her chair back. The sound echoed in the room. No. Her voice broke. No. 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 Tears streamed down her face. You showed me pictures, she whispered. Yes, Alibi said. I created fake wedding photos. Denis stared at him in disbelief. You forged an entire life. Alibi nodded slowly. Yes. Morayo suddenly felt the room spinning. Her breathing became uneven. The police officer noticed immediately. Madam? But it was too late. Morayo's vision blurred. The voices in the room began to echo. The truth, the lies, 2 years stolen, 2 years lived in a false life. Her body swayed, and then everything went dark. Morayo collapsed to the floor. Denis rushed forward in panic. Morayo! Police officers stood quickly. I call an ambulance. And as Denis held her unconscious body in his arms, one terrifying thought filled his mind. If she had been living with Alibi for 2 years, what else had happened during that time? What other truths had not been spoken yet? End of chapter 3. Morayo's body felt light. Too light, like she was floating somewhere between sleep and pain. Voices drifted around her, soft, distant, blurred. Her pulse is stable. Move the stretcher carefully. Sir, please give them space. Denis's voice cut through the fog. Morayo, please wake up. But Morayo could not answer. Her mind was trapped inside a storm. Pieces of memories were crashing into each other like broken glass. A market, sunlight, a car door opening, a strange smell. Darkness. Then another memory. A bedroom she thought was hers. A man smiling at her. Alibi. Her chest tightened. Suddenly her eyes opened. Bright white hospital lights filled her vision. For a second she did not know where she was. Then Denis's face appeared above her. His eyes were red. His hair looked messy, like someone who had not slept. "Morayo," he said softly. She stared at him. Something about his face felt painfully familiar. Not like before. This time something deeper stirred inside her chest. "Denis." The name slipped out before she could stop it. Denis froze. "What did you say?" Morayo blinked slowly. Her head hurt badly. "I said Denis." Denis's eyes filled with tears. "You remembered my name." Morayo pressed her fingers to her temple. "I don't remember everything," she whispered, "but I remember something." Her breathing became shaky. "I remember our wedding song." Denis covered his mouth as emotion rushed through him. The doctor standing nearby smiled gently. "That's a good sign," the doctor said. "Memory can return gradually." Morayo looked around the hospital room. "Where is he?" Denis's expression hardened. "Police custody." Morayo closed her eyes. Tears rolled down the sides of her face. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years of my life." Denis held her hand carefully. "I know." Morayo's voice cracked. "I lived with him, thinking he was my husband." Denis swallowed painfully. "Yes." Morayo looked at the ceiling. "I feel dirty," she whispered. Denis leaned forward immediately. "No." His voice was firm. "You were a victim." Morayo's chest shook. "But I shared a home with him. I trusted him. I believed him." Denis squeezed her hand. "Oh, because he stole your memory." The doctor spoke calmly. "You must not blame yourself. This was manipulation and chemical interference." Morayo nodded slowly, but the pain remained in her eyes. 3 days later, the courtroom in Lagos High Court, Igbosere, was silent. The case had already drawn attention. Abduction, identity fraud, psychological manipulation, and a woman whose life had been stolen. Morayo sat beside Denis on the wooden bench. She looked calmer now, still fragile, but stronger. Across the courtroom sat Alibi, handcuffed. His once neat appearance now looked tired and defeated. The judge entered. Court rise. Everyone stood. Justice Kudirat Adebayo took her seat, a woman known for her fairness and strict respect for the law. The prosecutor stood first. He explained everything: the abduction, and the chemical substances, the fake photographs, the stolen identity, the 2 years of deception. Each detail felt like another heavy stone being dropped into the room. Morayo kept her eyes down. Denis's jaw stayed tight. Finally, the judge turned to Alibi. "You have heard the charges against you." Alibi said nothing. Justice Kudirat's voice was calm but powerful. "You abducted a married woman. You deliberately destroyed her memory. You forced her to live as your wife through deception. You committed emotional and psychological abuse." The courtroom felt heavy with silence. The judge continued, "The law must protect innocent people from crimes like this." She looked directly at Alibi. "For abduction, fraud, unlawful detention, and forced marital deception." She paused. "This court sentences you to life imprisonment." The gavel struck, bang. Gasps filled the courtroom. Morayo closed her eyes as tears slid down her cheeks. Not tears of pain, tears of release. The police officers led Alibi away. He did not fight. He did not speak. For the first time in 2 years, Morayo was truly free. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun felt warm. Denis and Morayo stood quietly near the steps. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, Morayo looked up at him. "I still don't remember everything." "That's okay," Denis said softly. She smiled weakly. "You really meant what you said at the station, didn't you?" Denis frowned slightly. "What?" "That you would make me fall in love with you again." Denis chuckled quietly. "I meant every word." Morayo squeezed his hand. "I think it's already happening." Denis felt relief flood his chest. But something else was troubling him. Something the doctor had mentioned earlier. Morayo noticed the change in his face. "What is it?" Denis hesitated. You fainted earlier today during your hospital checkup. Morayo nodded. Yes. The doctor ran some tests. Morayo waited. Denis exhaled slowly. They found something. Morayo's stomach tightened. What? Denis looked directly at her. Morayo, you are pregnant. The words hung in the air. Morayo's face went pale. Her mind instantly understood. 2 years. Living with alibi, her knees nearly gave way. Denis quickly held her. I'm sorry, she whispered through tears. Denis shook his head immediately. No. But the baby. Denis placed a hand gently on her shoulder. This child did nothing wrong. Morayo stared at him, stunned. Denis continued quietly. If you choose to keep the baby, his voice softened. I will raise the child as my own. Morayo's tears fell harder now. Even after everything. Denis nodded. Yes. Morayo slowly rested her head against his chest. For the first time in 2 years, she felt safe. Not because life had become perfect, but because love had survived something terrible. And sometimes, that was the greatest victory of all. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.